We've been in a search, and we've gone through the hard hat area, the caution hard hat area. And I always get warned not to put on hats in the middle of my sermon because my hair starts. I have my 3 hairs, right? Now, Fabio works on those hairs and tries to make them in the, make it work. But when those 3 hairs move, then I'm Homer Simpson. Anyway. I mentioned that each one of us in our lives need to have the hard hat of what? What? Faith, that's right. It comes actually from the book of Ephesians, the shield of faith that extinguishes the arrows of the evil one. But if you're on a demolition site, you're not going to be like that. You're going to be like this because stuff can hit you. And when it hits your head, it takes you out. And so the hard hat of faith becomes the one thing that protects you. And this was the warning that I had to always give, is when you enter Ecclesiastes, the Old Testament, I believe the book of Ecclesiastes is the gospel of the Old Testament. It is a wisdom book that gives us answers. But you know what? Just like in the case of Indiana Jones, or just like in the case of a paleontologist, you have to dig sometimes. An archaeologist has to dig and find treasure. I know we today love to have treasure come to us so easy. We like to get on our app and say, oh, I'm heading to McDonald's. Let's see what I'm ordering. Boop, 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 boop. And then I just go and there it is. I don't have to dig at all. But in the book of Ecclesiastes, we learn that unless you dig, you will not care for it. Unless you search, you will never find. Sometimes people receive wisdom, but they don't even know that it's wisdom because they never searched for it. Love is one of those things that is not easily found in this world. You must search. And God will show you something. Now, last week, do you remember last week? Let's see if this thing's awake. Move to the next piece. Last week was the Frankenstein effect. Do you remember that? The Frankenstein effect. And in fact, let's see if, there he is. See our friend, Boris Karloff here. Remember this? As he's standing there, he's asking, why was I made? Do you remember that last week? Why do I exist? And you know, in this story, it is the story of how human beings, we think we're so smart. We create so many things. We're not interested in why we're doing what we're doing. We only are trying to find out what we can do. It sounds like someone from Jurassic Park, huh? The question is why are you doing this? You didn't think, why? Instead, we did all these different genetic modifications to see if we could do it. This is the proof that there is a God. The why God has given us. Even in a world of sin, we all know instinctively that there is something greater than just what we're experiencing today. We all cultures, whether they be on that side of the planet or this side of the planet, whether in the Middle East, whether in Asia, whether in Australia, whether in the United States, South America, Mesoamerica, all across, all through Europe, everybody comes to a place where they start to ask why. Why do I exist? And that is a proof, I believe, that there is a God. I have the Time magazine here that asks the question, is God dead? Many people believe that. The only thing is, the problem with that is, if he was dead, there would not be a yearning for the beyond. Frankenstein effect. All of us are like this monster. Every one of us have issues in our lives that we experience. We have been put together with experiences from our parents, our culture, and we are sewn together, and we try to discover why. And that's because we grew up in a world of sin. So this week comes love stitched together. Stitched together. Let's turn in our Bibles. Do you have your Bibles with me? I lost my hat there. Do you have your Bibles? Raise them up. Maybe you have them on your phone. That's fine, as long as you keep Instagram, Facebook, all these notifications and all the sales happening at bay. We're going to stick with the Word of God, okay? Ecclesiastes, right in the middle of your Bible. Ecclesiastes. And we're going to start with chapter 4, verses 7 and 8. And we'll begin to understand what love stitched together is all about. So, I'm going to start with verse 5 of chapter 4 in Ecclesiastes. Fools fold their what? I know, I got to get you guys to respond to me here. We're going to wake up, right? Ecclesiastes chapter 4, I'm going to start with verse 5. Fools fold their hands and what? Ruin themselves. Now that's a reality when we're not working and we just say, it'll take care of itself. What happens is it does take care of itself. We oftentimes ruin ourselves that way. 6, better one handful of tranquility than 2 handfuls of toil and chasing after wind. Verse 7, I saw something meaningless under the sun, Solomon says. There was a man, well, you can say a woman, okay, you can interplay this. There was a person all alone. He or she had neither son, sister, nor brother, nor daughter. That's what he's getting at. No one around. All alone. And it says, there was no end to his what? Are you hearing the text? Ecclesiastes chapter 4. We're at verse. Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse, this one is verse 8. There was no end to his toil, yet his eyes were not content with his what? With his wealth. Let me stop there. I mentioned this verse one time before, and it was in the third part of the demolition, dealing with how money does not bring joy. I know we're all told to believe that, but the truth is, it's a fact. We can try to be joyful. We can try to enjoy. I can have the best car. The only problem is that car can break down. I can have the best house that is perfect. I can even have a house that's well protected and beautiful, and you come in, and all the people that are in there can be paid to be there. And yet there's no love. Empty. Devoid of joy. This is why you find people, and you find it especially here in the United States, where you'll find some person that's an older person, and they're maybe at an assisted living facility, and oftentimes there's no one around. And there's ones that have friends and family, but there are some that have none. The hardest thing for me as a pastor is going to visit someone that sometimes maybe they're sick, and maybe their life is coming to a close, And there's not one person, no one. In fact, I will get called by the hospital sometimes, Glendale Adventist, or I'll get called sometimes by White Memorial, and they'll say, hey, Pastor John, our chaplain is not able, can you help us chaplain? Sure, no problem. I go and visit, and they have no church affiliation, but they want somebody to come and talk to them about something that matters. That is so hard. If you're in a situation like that, we've got to start connecting dots of people connecting together. You know what's a beautiful thing? And it doesn't, some of you are going to say, this is very morbid, Pastor. But some of the most beautiful things are when you find somebody. They may have died suddenly. Or maybe they're sick, but you know what I see when I go to visit them? Family, friends, people coming, and they're crying and they're sad. But to me, I'm sad, yes, of course. But you know what I'm happy about? Is that there's some spirit of love there. There is a joy. My dad, we thought he was gone a month ago, and Dad's now at home. And he's doing good. I'm so happy. There were people from church, Silmar Church, from this church, from our family, all over the place, coming, connecting. And there were others at the facility he was there at that nobody came to visit. And Dad mentioned that to me. I feel bad for certain individuals that are around me and no one comes to visit. There was a man all alone. His eyes were not content with his wealth. For whom am I toiling, he asked, and why am I depriving myself of enjoyment? This is a miserable business. I'm going to move to another section. Now I got to start. I'm looking at the time. I got to make sure I get it all under control here. This one's going to throw you off for a second, but read with me. Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verse 1. Chapter 11, verse 1. It says here, ship your grain across the sea. Or if you have an older translation, you'll say, cast your bread upon the waters. It may say that. But literally, the NIV translated is, you don't just throw your bread on the water. Well, you do. You put it on a boat to sell it to someone else. That's an investment. Put your grain across the sea, and many days you will receive a return. Have you ever been like that? Who here owns a business? Raise your hand. If you own a business. Yeah. You know investments don't happen immediately. If you're an employee, that's one thing. If you're an employee, you're getting a paycheck every single month. But there are those who are entrepreneurs, and you have to raise an amount of money, and you have to kind of sell it, and it goes away. My wife, Anna, who I don't see here, maybe she's up at the potluck. Sweetheart, I miss you, but I know potluck, she's got to get things under control. But her dad, Banana King in the Philippines, back in the 80s. In fact, I have the Review and Herald on the wall that says the Banana King, which means the biggest banana exporter in the Philippines. That's what he was back in the 80s, which bananas are big business in the Philippines. It says the Banana King joins the King of Kings when he got baptized. That was in the Review. And Daddy understands this because he would take, and you sell bananas and things like that, but you don't really get a profit until it's long term. You first have to start growing them. And then you gotta pay people to get and then you gotta have trucks to transport them. You're spending and you're spending and you're spending and you're spending. And then the sale happens and then the cash comes back. But what does he do with the cash? He takes it, he took 10% for God, and then again, he takes and reinvests much of it into the business again and again and again. Investment. Why am I talking about investment right now when I just was talking about people, when we're dying, sometimes being all alone? Why do you think I'm connecting the dots that Solomon is connecting? Let's read. Invest in 7 ventures, yes, even 8. For you do not know when disaster may come upon your land. If clouds are full of water, they pour rain on the earth. Whether a tree falls to the south or the north, in that place it will lie. I love that. Now, these are fortune cookies. Did you notice that? The fortune cookies are like Confucius. And by the way, Confucius just lived about 300 years after Solomon. He borrowed. I want you to know that there are some proverbs that Solomon wrote that Confucius turned from the positive into the negative. You know, do unto others what you would want them to do to you. And Confucius says, do not do unto others what you do not want them to do. Same thing, just made it stronger. I want you to know that the biggest influence on the planet was Solomon. There are entire religions in the East that are based upon the concepts we find in Ecclesiastes. But I continue reading. Whoever watches the wind will not plant. Now, did you hear what that just said? Have you ever met anyone that goes like this? Let's see. Today, I think we should have a spending bill on this. Oh, the people don't want, oh, well, then it's going to be on this. Oh, wait, it's going to be on politics. How the water moves. In Revelation, the concept of people is water going back and forth, moving to the right, moving to the left, moving up, moving down. Politics is like that. It changes on a dime as the wind blows. Solomon says that if you watch the clouds and the wind, you will never do anything. You will not reap. Verse 5, as you do not know the path of the wind or how the body is formed in the mother's womb, you cannot understand the work of God, who is the maker of all things. What he's telling us is we can never know what's going to happen. Don't try to say you know. Instead, invest in what you believe in. Halloween just passed, and it reminds me of an amazing film that was made a couple years ago. And some people don't, you know, we Adventists sometimes aren't so big into movies, right? Well, at least we say that. And because everyone says you're not supposed to like movies, right? And but there's some amazing stuff that has been made that is wise. But don't take it all. But there are concepts. And here's the thing. I want to show you a little piece. And let's make sure the sound is here, because I edited some different music to it. But this is an iconic thing. But I want you to see this girl, Sally. Sally is just like you and just like me. Let me explain. But to explain this, you must watch. Let's turn up the volume a little bit. The volume on the computer, that is. Now to watch here. She has decided she's going to sneak out of a tower that she's been put in. And this is, of course, animation. Real animation. Watch what she does. Ooh. Look, she's all in parts now. You see that, how she came apart? But I want you to watch and see what she does. You and me have fallen sometimes and broken into pieces. Don't raise your hand, but haven't you experienced that? Let's see what happens. Do you see that? Look at that leg there. Put it together. Sewing it right together. My friends, you and I in our lives have to be like this. We all experience difficulties of our lives. We all experience pain and suffering in our lives. Just like, last week was the Frankenstein's monster sewn together. We all tear apart with experiences that we experience. Maybe it might be, as we're young, our classroom, our experiences. Maybe we have friends or maybe not friends at school. Maybe bullying. Maybe your parents when you were young. Things have messed with you. Maybe you have done things that you wish you hadn't done in your life. Here's the question. How are you going to deal with it? Do you see what Sally did? She takes that string and all those sew things where her arm comes off, she takes and sews herself back together again. Let me read something here before I continue. This is from Harry Chapin. Back in the 1970s, he wrote this song called Cats in the Cradle. Let's listen with me. That's an interesting, by the way, name, Cats in the Cradle. I always wondered about that. A child arrived just the other day. He came to the world in that usual way. But there were planes to catch and bills to pay. He learned to walk while I was away. And he was talking, for I knew it as he grew. He'd say, I'm going to be like you, Dad. You know I'm going to be like you. Okay, are you listening? The Cat's in the Cradle, the Silver Spoon, Little Boy Blue, and the Man on the Moon. When are you coming home, Dad? I don't know when, but we'll get together then. Okay. My son turned 10 just the other day. He said, thanks for the ball, Dad. Now let's come and play. Can you teach me how to throw? I said, not today. I got a lot to do, he said. The boy said, that's okay. And when he walked away, but a smile never dimmed, he said, I'm going to be like him, yeah. You know I'm going to be like him. Well, he came from college just the other day. So much like a man, I just had to say, son, I'm proud of you. Can you sit for a while? He shook his head. The boy now shook his head. And he said with a smile, what I'd really like, Dad, is to borrow the car keys. See you later. Can I have them, please? I've long since retired. My son has moved away. I called him up just the other day. I said, I'd like to see you, if you don't mind. You see, the dad says, I'd like to see you, if you don't mind. He says, you see, my new job's the hassle and the kids have the flu. But it's sure nice talking to you, Dad. It's been sure nice talking to you. And as I hung up the phone, it occurred to me, he'd grown up just like me. My boy was just like me. And the Cat's in the Cradle and the Silver Spoon, Little Boy Blue and the Man on the Moon. When you coming home, Dad? I don't know. But we'll get together then. I know we're going to have a good time then. Love is something that must be sewn together. It takes investment and time. And you never will be perfect. I myself, as I listen to this, I hear it. And I see myself as a dad and as a pastor. And you know, there are a lot of times where I didn't have time, where I could have. But yet, have I invested what was needed at the time I had? Not just with children, not just with adults, not just as a spousal relationship, but even as a church, as people. How much time have we invested and sown together to do something that matters for God? Or have we been so concerned about everything else in our lives? All the stuff that is good, but not great. All the deals that we could get that aren't really deals. All the stuff we could have bought that really won't be looked at the next year. What is the real investment that you and I have done? Are we going to sew ourselves and this community together like Sally did in that scene? Or are we going to just ride? You know, today's culture is about just letting everything ride. You know that, right? It's so much easier to do nothing. It's so much easier to not work on things because we've been taught to not work. I mean, our devices have taught us to not work, haven't they? These things are great. The only problem is they constantly are our slave masters for what they want us to do, not what we need to do in our lives. Chapter 4, verse 9 through 12. Chapter 4 of Ecclesiastes, verses 9 through 12. And I want you to equate this not just to a relationship in a marriage or a children-parent relationship, but I want you to equate this to the way Paul would equate it, that we all are of the community of God. Let's read this together. Two are better than one. Two are better than one, because they have a good return for their labor. See that investment? You see that investment talk? I know. We always think about investment as like some kind of scam, some kind of pyramid scheme, but real investment. You know, Anna, when I met her in Bangkok, Thailand, she's an investment in myself. And I would hope that I'm an investment for her future too. When I look at myself in the mirror. When we were going to get married, we got married in the Philippines and the States, okay? In the Philippines, she was 24 years of age, and therefore she was underage to get married on her own without counseling from the state. From the state. I want to know how many people in the state are going to help, but anyway, never mind. So we had counseling, and I was in a group of guys. A lot of them were white guys with Filipina ladies going around, and the first guy says, I want to, and the question is why do you want to marry your wife? Well, because she's beautiful. Okay, very good. That sounds good. That's everyone clap. Because she's so smart. I agree. Everyone clap. Came around, and Anna was so upset at me at first. Why do you want to marry Anna? And I said, because she's Anna. Anna looks at me. Because I'm marrying you. I love you. Seriously, beauty can go away. I mean, just look at me. It can go away real quick. Smarts can go away. Sometimes through history, but sometimes through events in life. I may be a marathon runner today, and tomorrow I may be in a wheelchair. I can marry someone because they have money, And by the way, Anna, her family has a lot more money than our pastor's family here in the States. It's funny because we came to the States and people were like, oh, it's so nice. The assumption is she was marrying so that she could have more. And Anna's like, can I get out of the room, please? Seriously. Daddy was a multi-millionaire in the Philippines, and then he come in his pastor's salary. Anyway. I married Anna not because she was beautiful, though she is. I didn't marry her because she's smart, and believe you me, she is smart. It's very hard to argue with her. She always wins, even though I don't want to admit it. I didn't marry her for her body, though it's beautiful for me. I married her. That's the whole package. Love is not about check boxes. You know that? Millennials love check boxes. Baby boomers love check boxes. I don't know what Gen Xers like. I'm a Gen Xer, so I'm not going to define it. Because it's X, right? We all like our little check boxes. But check boxes are for paperwork, not for life. Love is something that goes beyond, and it's about sewing yourself together with that person, your child, your spouse, and, might I say, our church. Two are better than one. They have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can pick them up. But pity the person who has no one to pick them up, right? Also, two can lie down together. They will keep warm. But how can one keep warm all alone? Do you notice? 1, 2. You notice this? 1 is, 2 is. 1 is, 2 is. But now Solomon's going to throw us all off. This is a Hebrew style, by the way, of writing of the ancient world. Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. Who's the third? We've had many places in Ecclesiastes where Jesus was mentioned but never named. 1 in 1,000, remember that? 1 in 1,000 is righteous. The rest have gone after schemes. We all need to be sewn together, but we can't do it on our own. We need God, and this brings us to the next piece, which is, you remember the story of Edmond Dantes? Remember, he came with his glory now, and yet he was lying on the floor. Edmond Dantes had gone through this terrible circumstance, and when he got out of prison, he had the money now from Monte Cristo treasure to be able to destroy everyone. And his friend, Jacobo, says, you're crazy. You're crazy because you want to destroy people. Take the money and enjoy your life. No, I am going to have revenge. And you know, all of us are like this. As we meet Jesus and we learn that our lives have no meaning, in Ecclesiastes we discover it, we start to become angry, and we become angry at everyone who put us here. And then Jesus comes along and he exits us. He exits us from the prison. But that doesn't mean the prison isn't still here and here. Now we have to become sewn together. We need to find a new life. We discover the things that we have messed up in our lives. And how do we fix those things? But the strands that fix us must have a piece from God. It can't just be our own. And now, let's take a look and see one piece that has to happen here in this story. Let's turn up the volume. Edmond Dantes is now Count of Monte Cristo. He's not named Edmond. No one knows him as Edmond. Let's turn up the volume. The voices are very low here. This is Mercedes.
Told me that you were executed.
She was told he was executed.
Oh, God.
Countess, you are mistaken. Back to the Mondego.
No.
Madame, I'm only
I
thinking
beg
of
you,
your
Edmond.
position.
I don't care.
I am not this Edmond.
Stop it! Stop it!
I am not Edmond. You see, he is busy. She married his best friend who wanted him dead because his best friend, wanted her. His best friend from childhood, Count Mondego. She actually had secretly married him, but before their life started to happen, he then was thrown in a prison cell, and she was told that he was killed. And remember, he had high crimes against the state because Mondego, Count Mondego, if you remember, as I told you this story as we're moving along, if you want to go back, you can go back through these and see. They're all online. You can follow piece by piece. So she notices that he is Edmond Dantes, but he is not. He is trying. No, he wants his revenge on everyone. We kind of are like that ourselves. We have our ways of revenge against others until we get to know who God is really. And remember, he didn't want to believe in God, even though God had saved him from the prison cell. Let's continue on.
Stop it! What are you? A spirit. Some ghost sent to torment me.
This Edmond. You loved him.
Yes,
For how long?
For how long did you love
for all
him?
of my life.
And how long after he died before you married the Count?
Oh, ouch.
That isn't fair.
Withdraw, Countess.
Listen carefully.
You're right. You cannot be my Edmond.
Well, there you are. You said it yourself. Edmond Dantes is dead. Good night.
Did you hear that?
Countess.
You will hear what that means in a few moments. But Jacobo,
If you ever again presume to interfere in my affairs, I will, I promise, finish the job I started the day we met. Do you understand? I understand you are mad. I am still your man, Sadara.
he says, you're mad.
So I know.
You have all this money.
Even if it means I must protect you from yourself. I'll drive you home now.
He says, I have vowed to protect you, even if it's from yourself. We experience this in our lives because of our anger, our rage sometimes. Because as we first get to know Jesus and he starts to connect us, he starts to connect with us and we learn about him, sometimes we have the same old angers inside, don't we? The rage, the revenge. We may do it passive aggressive. We may do it aggressive. We may do it in different ways. It's because we feel insecure. Edmond has a lot of money now to use for his revenge. And Jacobo says, you're not supposed to be like this. Let's see what happens now. He'll see Mercedes again. He comes home, and lo and behold, Edmond is again not alone.
I thought we had finished our conversation in the carriage.
So did I. Until I realized you said the name Dantes. A name that I had never mentioned.
Did you hear that? Oops.
What do you want of me?
She never said Dante's.
13 years in the Chateau d'If,
Edmund did.
and everywhere else you can imagine.
The Chateau d'If for 13 years.
The prison where he was, Chateau d'If.
Did you suffer?
Did you suffer?
Are you finished now? I have a good deal on my mind.
What happened afterward?
Much.
Why did you not come to me?
Why did you not wait? You married the very man who betrayed.
I told you that night on the rocks. Remember?
That's the ring
It would never leave my finger.
that he gave her
And it never had.
before he was thrown in prison.
No, why?
If you ever love me, don't rob me of my hate. It's all I have.
Let it go, Aitken. Let it go. I don't know what dark plan lies within you. Nor do I know by what design we were asked to live without each other these 16 years. But God has offered us a new beginning. Don't slap his hand away.
Can I never escape him?
Can I ever escape God is the question. You can never, ever, ever escape God. Our lives are twists and turns. Many of you perhaps know what I was saying throughout this whole series. Maybe you have experienced it in your lives yourself. But I'm telling you, there are many others who have not. I want you to know that as you discover joy from living with redemption in your heart. Do you know what I mean by redemption? When you're a slave, you're never free. When you are controlled by others, you are never free. If you're angry at the slave owner of you, someone who has oppressed you, if you continue to be angry at that one, you are still a slave of that person. Do you know that? Your revenge against that person will never give you joy. You will try to be angry and revengeful, and no matter what you do, when you smack that person, it will not be enough. Instead, you must release. The word to forgive in Greek means to let go. That's what it means. Forgive is to let go. Being sewn together is accepting that you're broken, understanding that you cannot control your future, you can only deal with your past, and then make choices that make your future better. But you must also do another thing. You must realize that God is also in charge of your future. There are 3 strands, not just 2. It says a cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. Practical. I know the time is here. Practical part. Have you ever gone to a church and you say, I can't stand those people? Have you ever gone to the highway and said, I can't stand those people? Have you ever gone to your family and said, I can't stand those people? Don't laugh too loudly. Your family member might be near you. We all have. Here's the thing about love. It's not just you and them, but the way to have true love of another is when someone's in the middle. The glue, the third strand, that creates a braid. You know, you strand two together, that's fine. Get a third one, and now you can intermingle. The strongest lines you find are the braids. 3 strands are almost impossible to break compared. And that's how these bridges are put together, and that's all this interweaving strands creates a strength that is unbelievable. I, as a pastor, have learned to love every single person that comes into my church, no matter how much they hate me, love me, or are indifferent to me. I don't have to love what they're doing, but I can love them. Sometimes, have you ever heard that? I love, but I don't like, right? It's true. In any relationship, there's times where love and hate are so close together. They're emotional. But love can overshadow and overpower a multitude of sins. Redemption is about that third strand. You know what redemption is? Redemption is the buying of you back. Edmond Dantes is in the middle of redemption, and Mercedes comes to him and says, "You told me you're not Edmond, but I never said Dantes." He messed up, didn't he? And then what happens is she says, "Maybe God brought us together." And that's when Edmund says, "Can I stop hearing about God? Stop hearing. Why is it? Why can't I? Why do I always have to hear? Can I never get rid of this?" And she says, God is in everything, everywhere with us. And that's true. In the book of Ephesians, God is all in all. That's what Paul says. God works through all these different things. Even the things we don't like, God is involved and cares for you and for me. And we Seventh-day Adventists even more so understand that, because we understand that prophecy is how God is working through these things to bring us together with Him. But these things must happen for the end to come, Jesus said. I want you to know that Jesus wants you to be changed and redeemed and renewed. And He does that, but sometimes we don't know how. What is it I have to do? He will show you. He will show you how you can begin, like Sally, to sew yourself together. But the string that is used is the love and the power of God that can pull you together. Joy becomes your experience rather than sadness. You and I are not Sadventists. Right? SDA is not SAD. We are not Sadventists. We're not Badventists. We're Seventh-day Adventists. And because of this, we can have a joy in our hearts that comes from the one who glues us together with even those that the world says could never be friends or family. We are family.